I bid you welcome.
Aliens occupies rather unique company, rarefied air, if you will, in that when you ask a random stranger, be like, hey, Alien or Aliens, it's one of those sequels that is on par in terms of quality to the first one, similar to things like Godfather Part 2. There are Alien people and there are Aliens people, and I flip-flopped all of my life. But I think for me personally, while Aliens is a stone cold classic, I do like Alien just a bit more. But Aliens is still awesome. But more on that, turn it over to my friend Brevin once again. Brevin, take it away.
Yours truly, Brevin Thompson, is back, and I want to give a big thank you to Ryan for inviting me back on his channel to talk about Aliens, which was directed by James Cameron, and is, of course, the sequel to the classic '79 film that was directed by Ridley Scott. And what I love most about this film is that James Cameron didn't try to copy what Ridley Scott got right the first time around back in 1979. He made his own film. While the original film was a masterpiece of science fiction horror, this film is combined into science fiction action and science fiction horror, and because of that, this film is just as much of a masterpiece as the '79 classic. Sigourney Weaver was also nominated for an Oscar for Best Actress because of her role as Ripley in this movie. Sure, she was great in the original, but here, this is the best that she's done as the character. As for her Oscar nomination, she deserved it. It's just a shame that she didn't win, though. And outside of Ripley, this film has very likable characters. Everybody in the Colonial Marines, and especially Hudson, who gets the famous line, "Game over, man, game over." And of course, you have the beautiful mother and daughter-like relationship between Ripley and Newt. They have excellent chemistry together. Michael Biehn is also in this film as Hicks. He previously worked with James Cameron on The Terminator playing Kyle Reese. And Lance Hendrickson as Bishop is also a really good character. And there's one scene in particular where he's ripped in half by the alien queen, which is pretty gnarly. The xenomorphs are terrifying as always, and I love that they got Stan Winston on board for this film. This is probably some of the best work that he's done in the industry in regards to horror or sci-fi films. Rest in peace. This is some of the best work that he has done, especially on the Alien Queen. The Alien Queen, I love the look of this thing, and especially towards the third act when Ripley goes up against the Alien Queen. And I've always loved when Ripley delivers this amazing line.
Get away from her, you bitch!
This film is pretty much flawless in my eyes. It's one of the best films ever made. It's one of the best sequels ever made. It's one of James Cameron's best films. I highly recommend checking out Aliens. It's one of the best ever. Once again, I'm going to give a big thank you to Ryan for inviting me on his channel. I had so much fun talking about this film. We'll be talking about Evil Dead 2 pretty soon. I'm looking forward to sharing my thoughts on that film with you guys. And as always, thank you so much as always for watching. Looking forward to doing more videos really soon, either on Ryan's channel or my channel, Brevin's Flicks and Games. And if you want my thoughts on old or new films, of course, you know where to find me.
Brevin will also be on tomorrow to talk about Evil Dead 2, so stay tuned for that. But Aliens was, of course, as you know, directed by James Cameron, who had just come off of directing a little movie you may have heard of called The Terminator. In my research, I found that Scott was actually never offered to direct the sequel because, in his own words, he was difficult to work with in the original. So Cameron ended up getting the job. Aliens is different from Alien in that Aliens is focused more on the action side of things rather than the haunted house in space, more claustrophobic type of horror. Cameron, though, to his credit, makes a xenomorph just really super dangerous in this one. As a matter of fact, Aliens has got to be one of the greatest titles of all time. You just put an S on the end. You've seen what one xenomorph can do, and in this movie, you're going to see what many of them can do. it's genius. Sigourney Weaver is, of course, great in the movie, and really, I felt more sympathy for her this time around because she is really the only character in this movie that makes any lick of sense. Because just Wayland Yutani is just so freaking dumb in this movie, colonizing the very planet that the xenomorphs reside on. Like, that's some stupidity on a level that should be studied. Lance Hendrickson is fun as Bishop, and I like the dynamic of the tension of considering Ash and that whole thing in the first Alien, how Ripley is not a big fan of the robots this time around. The little girl they got to play Newt, I believe her name is Carrie Henn, she did a good job as well. In my research, I found that this is pretty much the only movie she ever did. I mean, if you have to do one, make it one of the best sci-fi movies of all time, I guess. And to top all of that off, this movie has the best ending of the Alien franchise, full stop, including that iconic line of "Get away from her, you bitch!" Like, that line is still awesome, and that final fight is just great. If somehow you have never seen Aliens, do yourself a favor this Halloween season and check it out for yourself.